If your Frigidaire washer is showing error E90, the first thing to understand is that this is usually not a simple drain problem, and it is usually not caused by too much laundry or a blocked filter. On many Frigidaire and Electrolux-style front-load washers, E90 is commonly linked to an electronic communication problem. In simple words, one control part of the washer is not talking correctly to another control part. That could mean a bad connection, a loose wiring harness, corrosion on a connector, a damaged wire, a failed user interface board, a failed main control board, or sometimes a problem with another board, depending on the exact model. The washer may beep, refuse to start, show E90 as soon as you plug it in, or show the error when you try to select a cycle. In some cases, the machine may seem completely confused, with buttons not responding normally. Before doing anything, unplug the washer from the wall. This is very important. Error E90 is often connected to wiring and control boards, so you should never inspect connectors or internal parts while the washer is connected to power. Now, start with the simplest possible fix. Unplug the washer and leave it unplugged for a few minutes. Some manufacturers recommend a short reset, but in practice it is often better to leave it unplugged long enough for the electronics to fully power down, then plug it back in and try again. If the error disappears and does not come back, it may have been a temporary control glitch, but if E90 returns immediately, the washer is probably detecting a real communication fault. The next thing to check is the power supply. Make sure the washer is plugged into a proper outlet and that the plug is not loose. Avoid extension cords if possible. A poor power connection, voltage problem, or intermittent outlet can make electronic faults worse. If the outlet is good and the error remains, the next likely area is the wiring harness. A wiring harness is a group of wires that connects the washer's electronic parts together. On many front-load washers, there may be connections between the user interface, the console control board, the main control board, and sometimes the motor control board. If one connector is loose, one pin is corroded, or one wire is broken inside the harness, the boards may lose communication and the washer can show E90. This matches a common real-world symptom. The washer shows E90, but when someone moves, heats, or presses on a wiring harness, the error changes or the machine briefly works again. Some people have used a hairdryer on the wiring harness and found that the washer starts working, but this is not a real repair. Heating the connector may temporarily expand the metal pins or change the contact pressure, but it does not fix the loose or damaged connection. It can also hide the real problem. If heat makes the washer work, that is a strong clue that a connector, pin, solder joint, or wire may be failing. The better approach is to inspect the harness properly. With the washer unplugged, remove the appropriate access panel for your model. If you are not comfortable doing this, stop here and call a technician. Look for loose plugs, damaged wires, burnt marks, moisture, corrosion, bent pins, or connectors that do not sit tightly. Do not pull on the wires themselves. Hold the plastic connector body when disconnecting or reconnecting plugs. If you disconnect a connector, take a photo first so you know exactly where it goes. Then unplug and reseat the connector firmly. Sometimes simply unplugging and reconnecting the harness can restore a poor connection. If you see corrosion, an electrical contact cleaner designed for electronics may help, but the appliance must be unplugged and the connector must be dry before power is restored. Do not spray random household cleaners into electrical connectors. Now, let's talk about damaged wires. In the information you provided, the problem was eventually traced to a wire in the harness. After other wires were tested and repaired, one yellow wire in the connector area appeared to be the one causing the E90 error. Once that connection was repaired, the washer powered up and worked again. That is a useful example, but it does not mean the same color wire will be the problem on every Frigidaire washer. Different models can use different wiring layouts. Even on similar machines, the bad connection may be a different pin, a different connector, or a different board. So do not just cut and solder the yellow wire because someone else did. The correct repair is to diagnose the exact connection on your machine. If a wire is broken, loose, or damaged, the safest repair is usually to replace the wiring harness or have the damaged section repaired properly by someone who knows appliance wiring. A soldered repair must be insulated correctly, protected with heat shrink, and secured so vibration does not break it again. A washer moves and vibrates during spin, so weak wire repairs can fail quickly. Another possible cause is a bad solder joint on a control board. Over time, vibration, heat, moisture, and age can affect solder joints or relays on the board. Some people remove the control board, inspect it, and resolder suspicious points. But this is a delicate repair. It is easy to damage the board, create a short, or miss the real fault. If the board has visible burn marks, swollen components, moisture damage, or cracked solder joints, the board may need repair or replacement. The next possible cause is the user interface board. This is the part with the buttons, display, and controls. If the user interface is not communicating with the main board, the washer may show E90 or a related E9X communication code. Buttons may not respond, lights may behave strangely, or the display may show errors immediately after power up. The main control board is another possible cause. This board manages the washer's operation and communicates with the other electronic modules. If the main board is failing, it may not send or receive signals correctly. Replacing the board may fix the problem, but it should not be the first guess, unless the wiring and connectors have been checked. There may also be a motor control communication issue on some models. If the washer has a separate speed control or motor control board, a bad harness connection or failed motor control board can also cause communication faults. That is why the exact model number matters. Frigidaire washers can use different electronic layouts. Before ordering parts, find the model number on the washer, usually around the door opening or on the rear label, and look up the correct tech sheet or service information for that model. Now let's go through the safe troubleshooting order. First, unplug the washer. Second, leave it unplugged for several minutes and try a basic reset. Third, check the outlet and power cord. Fourth, inspect accessible wiring harnesses and connectors. Fifth, unplug and reseat connectors one at a time, taking photos first. Sixth, look for corrosion, moisture, burnt marks, loose pins, or broken wires. Seventh, if moving or warming a harness changes the error, suspect a bad connector or wire, not a magical heat fix. Eighth, if the wiring is good, suspect the user interface board, main control board, or motor control board depending on the model. And finally, call a qualified appliance technician if you are not confident working around electronics. There are also a few things you should not do. Do not keep cycling power over and over without checking anything. Do not run the washer with panels removed. Do not touch wiring while the machine is plugged in. Do not bypass connectors or safety circuits. Do not use a blow dryer as a permanent repair. Do not cut wires unless you know exactly what you are testing and how to repair them safely. The short version is this. Error E90 on a Frigidaire washer usually points to an electronic communication problem. The simplest cause is a temporary control glitch, so start with a reset. The more common real causes are loose connectors, damaged harness wiring, corrosion, failed solder joints, a bad user interface board, a bad main control board, or a motor control communication problem. If your washer shows E90 as soon as it is plugged in, and especially if moving or heating the wiring harness changes the behavior, focus on the connectors and wiring before replacing expensive boards. But if the error keeps coming back, after the basic checks, use the exact model number and get the washer diagnosed properly. That is the safest way to fix Frigidaire washer Error E90 without guessing and without replacing the wrong part.